Everyone knew I was the one Arthur Sinclair had personally chosen for the marriage alliance. Whoever married me would inherit the Sinclair family fortune. At the engagement party, I stood in a custom-tailored suit, ready to step onto the stage, and announced the union between the Sinclair and Donovan families. But then, my fiancée, Vivian Sinclair, walked in, her hand clasped tightly with my adopted brother, Caleb Donovan. Their fingers were intertwined. She pulled him into the center of the crowd, standing proudly at his side. "Caleb and I are in love," she declared. "He is the only one I will marry. Sincere Sterling is too impulsive. He isn't fit to be a son-in-law to the Sinclairs." In a single moment, the man engaged to Vivian Sinclair was now my adopted brother. The room fell silent. Faces turned toward me, some filled with pity, others with scorn. What Vivian didn't know was that Arthur Sinclair only wanted me to marry her because my mother is the heir to the reclusive and powerful Sterling family. One day, I would return to the Sterlings and inherit their empire. Since Vivian had made her choice, it was time for the Sinclair family to make theirs. Vivian gripped Caleb's hand even tighter, pulling him before the crowd. Caleb's eyes widened as he tried to pull back. "Vivian, we can't do this," he whispered. "Your marriage to my younger brother was arranged by Mr. Sinclair himself. You're the one I love," she said firmly. "I won't marry anyone else." Her gaze swept to Arthur Sinclair, seated at the head table. "Grandfather," she announced, "Caleb is the one I've always loved. I will only marry him." The guests exchanged looks, sympathy for me, curiosity for them. Everyone in our circle knew that Vivian and I had grown up together, that I was the patriarch's hand-picked grandson-in-law. And yet, here she was, humiliating me in front of everyone. Her tone left no room for negotiation. "Even though Sincere and I grew up together, I've only ever seen him as a younger brother. I have no other feelings for him. Caleb and I are in love, and we've been together for a long time. My heart, my husband can only be Caleb. No other man will do." Robert and Beatrice Sinclair's expressions shifted instantly, nervous glances passing between them and the patriarch. Vivian, still holding Caleb's arm, looked at me with a glimmer of mockery in her eyes. "Sincere, you should know I don't have romantic feelings for you. Surely you wouldn't want to force a woman who doesn't love you into a miserable marriage for the rest of her life. Besides, Caleb and I are already together. Can't use the fact that grandfather likes you to come between us." I looked at the two of them, then turned to Arthur Sinclair and bowed slightly. "Mr. Sinclair, since they are so in love, how could I be the one to break them up? Let's grant them their wish. I wish Miss Sinclair and my brother a lifetime of happiness together." A flicker of displeasure crossed Vivian's face. Caleb, uncertain, took her arm. "Vivian, your marriage to my brother was arranged by your grandfather. Will he be upset about this?" Vivian patted his hand reassuringly, her voice sweet but cold. "Of course not.
My grandfather adores me."
Why would he get angry over an outsider? This was supposed to be a union between our two families. Why should we care about him? An outsider? Only my father and Arthur Sinclair knew the truth, that I was no outsider. My mother was the heir of the reclusive Sterling family. My parents' marriage had been a business alliance. I had taken my mother's surname because one day I would inherit the Sterling fortune. More importantly, did she truly believe Caleb was my father's biological son? Arthur Sinclair's expression darkened. "Vivian, don't be ridiculous. Are you certain you want to marry Mr. Donovan?" Without hesitation, she slid the engagement ring onto Caleb's finger. He bent down and kissed her forehead with reverence. "Grandfather," she said with finality, "I've thought it through. We'll marry no one but Caleb in this life." Arthur Sinclair looked at her with deep disappointment. If it had simply been a matter of changing the groom, he might have accepted it. But humiliating me in front of so many people proved something else. She was unreliable. Fine, have it your way. With Arthur Sinclair's words, a collective sigh of relief swept through the crowd. Many business tycoons had been invited to witness the union, and everyone was eager to see how the drama would resolve. Amidst the whispers, Vivian took Caleb's hand and faced the guests. "Thank you all for coming today to celebrate my engagement to Mr. Caleb Donovan. The guests' expressions were a mixture of shock and curiosity. The Sinclair and Donovan families had just swapped the groom on the spot. My father, Julian Donovan, hadn't expected this either. His face darkened instantly. My own expression wasn't much better, but I forced myself to stand tall, raising my glass and presenting a generous gift. The murmurs around us were not subtle. Miss Sinclair actually switched fiancés right on the spot. She didn't give Sincere any face at all. Didn't old Mr. Sinclair insist Sincere would be his grandson-in-law? Why did he agree to this? Switching fiancés at the engagement party? That's quite the scandal. I wonder what he did to make Miss Sinclair take such a drastic step. The gossip swirled openly. My father's glare turned to Caleb, but his first words were aimed at Vivian. How much gossip do you think your brother will have to endure because of what you've done? Then his attention snapped to Caleb. And you're not a child anymore. You act without thinking about the consequences. Are you trying to embarrass me? Chisened. Caleb timidly began to take the ring off, intending to return it to me. But Arthur Sinclair waved his hand, stopping him. He patted my head, guilt flickering in his eyes, and spoke in a deep voice. Sincere, my boy, don't worry, I'll make this right. If you're willing, there are several other fine young DLs, women in the Sinclair family. Vivian's parents, Robert and Beatrice, overheard but assumed the old man was only trying to comfort me. They paid it no mind. What they didn't expect was for me to point toward a corner of the room where the Sinclair family's illegitimate daughter stood quietly, watching the drama unfold. Actually, I said calmly, the one I've always liked is Victoria Sinclair. I hope you can grant us your blessing, grandfather. All eyes turned to Victoria, darting between her and me. She was the illegitimate daughter of Arthur's late eldest son. Since her father's death, she had never been well liked within the family and had endured a difficult life. But as a Sinclair, the patriarch had taken her in to prevent gossip about the family mistreating a child. My father leaned in, his voice low and incredulous, sincere. I know you're upset, but she's an illegitimate child. The Sinclairs don't value her at all. I swirled the wine in my glass, my tone light. It's not like she chose. To be born illegitimate? I think she's remarkable. I'm willing to give it a try with her. Victoria's gaze met mine, her expression casual. Since Mr. Sterling is so fond of me, then let's give it a try. The crowd's glances grew even more meaningful. News of the Sinclair family's on-spot switch spread through our social circle like wildfire. Just as the party ended, I received a text from my mother. In a private room, Eleanor Sterling pulled me into a hug, her eyes sharp as blades as she glared at my father. Julian Donovan, you dare let my son suffer such a public humiliation? Is you tired of running your company? I squeezed her hand, steering the conversation back to the matter at hand. Mr. Sinclair has arranged a new match for me. Her name is Victoria Sinclair. I quite like her. My father wiped the sweat from his brow. She's just an illegitimate child. Nobody in the Sinclair family values her. Why would you choose her? Seeing their confusion, I spoke slowly, each word deliberate. The marriage alliance was set by Arthur Sinclair and my maternal grandfather. I have to marry a Sinclair girl. Victoria may be illegitimate, but she is the most capable of the younger Sinclair generation. She was also the smartest and most composed. From a business perspective, she was the perfect partner. Besides, as an illegitimate daughter, marrying me would give her the Sterling family as her foundation within the Sinclair household. She would never betray me.
Wow.
Caleb Donovan was the man everyone seemed to admire. Countless people lined up to make his acquaintance after all. Powerful union between the Sinclair and Donovan. Families meant that securing a partnership with them was a guaranteed step up in the industry. I had no time for such things. My focus was on completing the tasks my mother had given me abroad. One day, it was Arthur Sinclair's birthday. Caleb specifically sent me an invitation, calling several times until I had no choice but to attend. The moment I stepped through the Sinclair family's doors, all eyes turned toward me. I felt no embarrassment, only a faint smile as I handed my gift to the Sinclair butler. "What's Sincere Sterling doing here?" Didn't they switch the fiancé? You haven't heard? When Miss Sinclair insisted on the change, he chose the family's illegitimate daughter out of spite. He'd even marry an illegitimate child just to get into the Sinclair family. Mr. Sterling is certainly willing to do whatever it takes. As the whispers spread, Vivian appeared flamboyantly on Caleb's arm. Unlike her usual gentle, low-key style, she wore a haute couture gown, dripping with intricate and luxurious jewelry. The effect was lavish, but almost tacky. Caleb's suit alone was worth a fortune, and the watch on his wrist could have bought a mansion. When he spotted me, he strode over and tried to sling his arm around my shoulder. Brother, it's wonderful that we can both be sons-in-law to the Sinclair family. For the sake of our brotherhood, I'll have Vivian promote your wife a little. I almost laughed out loud. Even now, he thought my only goal was to marry into the Sinclair family. Annie Sinclair. Vivian thought the same. In her eyes, I was a desperate man who would stop at nothing to marry her. She looked at me as if I were something filthy. I had no interest in either of them. I turned 11 till my gaze caught on a jade pendant hanging from Caleb's neck. It was of exceptional quality, a Sinclair family heirloom always kept, by Arthur Sinclair himself. I never expected to see it on Caleb. The Sinclair heir hadn't even been chosen yet. I pointed toward it, my eyes sharp. Where did you get that? For a brief moment, Vivian's expression faltered. Caleb, wearing a wounded look, stroked the pendant. Brother, this was supposed to be yours. But I'm the one marrying Vivian. Now, so naturally, the pendant is mine. Vivian nodded, entirely self-assured. In her mind, she was already the designated heir, so what harm was there in letting her beloved wear the heirloom early? This is my family's heirloom. I can let whoever I want wear it. What does it have to do with you? She looked me over with open disdain and stepped back. Don't think you can use this as an excuse to pester me. I will never like you. My heart belongs only to Caleb. Her voice was loud enough for others to hear, and soon eyes turned toward me. Sincere Sterling always seemed so aloof. I can't believe he tried to steal his brother's fiancée just to climb the social ladder. Those two are clearly in love. Why is he still bothering her? Caleb blushed, tugging gently on Vivian's arm. Don't be so harsh on my brother. Once he marries Victoria, we'll all be family. You should help them out. Vivian glanced at me, then tilted her head adoringly toward Caleb, pinching his cheek. All right. For your sake, I'll let it go. But if he has any improper thoughts about me, don't blame me for being merciless. Just as they sank into their little display, a voice rang out from behind them. Why would my husband have any improper thoughts about you, Vivian? That's a very rude way to speak to your future brother-in-law. Victoria Sinclair entered, supporting Arthur Sinclair. A faint smile played on her lips, but her eyes held a spark of challenge as she looked at Vivian. Arthur's gaze fell on the pendant. Around Caleb's neck, his expression immediately darkening. Who told you to wear that? Take it off. Arthur's presence carried authority even without anger. Caleb flinched, startled, and quickly removed the pendant. Grandfather, Vivian muttered, displeased. I'm the one who let Caleb wear it. That pendant will be mine sooner or later. What's the harm in letting him wear it for a bit? Arthur said nothing, only cast her a cold look before leading Victoria to her seat at the head of the room. Clearing his throat, he addressed the guests. Besides celebrating an old man's birthday, I have another piece of happy news to announce. This is my granddaughter, Victoria Sinclair. In a few days, she and Sincere Sterling will be officially engaged. I hope you will all join us for a drink then. The crowd's eyes widened, gazes darting between me and Victoria. Vivian froze, staring in disbelief. Grandfather, what are you talking about? Why is Sincere getting engaged to Victoria? She's just an illegitimate child. Arthur cut her off sharply. Victoria is my granddaughter too. She is a Sinclair. After the first engagement party, I had privately arranged to meet with Victoria in a secluded room. She looked at me with a knowing expression, a playful smile touching her lips. Just an illegitimate child. There are so many other outstanding girls in the Sinclair family. Why choose me? I pushed a file across the table toward her, because you need me, and I need you. A partnership between us is the optimal solution. She only glanced at the file, not picking it up. What kind of partnership could we possibly have? I calmly slid the file closer. To be frank, I've done my research on you. You are incredibly capable, exactly the kind of person I want to work with. Besides, if you had no ambitions for the Sinclair family, why would you be making so many moves behind the scenes? Her eyes grew wary, but I paid it no mind. Leaning forward, my gaze locked on her wild, ambitious eyes. Aren't you curious why Arthur Sinclair said that only the person who marries me can inherit the Sinclair fortune? She stared at me for a long time. Just when I thought she might refuse, Victoria extended her hand. Business with you, my fiancé. Just as I expected, after I chose Victoria, Arthur Sinclair began paying more attention to this granddaughter. She had been brought back into the family quietly, her existence never publicly announced. Arthur must have done his own investigation, which was why he chose his birthday party to announce our engagement and simultaneously introduce Victoria to society. Robert and Beatrice Sinclair were blindsided, stunned into silence. For the patriarch to declare our engagement now was a clear signal to the world that he intended to support her. To them, I had always been a burden for my father's first marriage dead weight, carrying my ex-wife mother's name. After graduation, my father hadn't arranged a position for me in the family company, letting me drift abroad with vague sleep tasks for my mother, Robert and Beatrice. It was obvious. I wasn't inheriting the Donovan business. That's why they had quietly accepted the swap. It was simple math to them. A do-nothing heir, or someone destined to inherit the Donovan fortune. The choice was obvious. When Robert Sinclair finally recovered from the shock, his hands trembled as he clutched his chest, taking several deep breaths. Around us, birthday guests swarmed Victoria, raising their glasses to toast her. Vivian, who had been so triumphant moments ago, was now pushed to the edges of the crowd, composure cracked. She glared at me, her voice trembling with fury. You've only met Victoria a few times. Are you really going to marry her just to spite me? Before I could answer, Victoria stepped to my side. She looked down at Vivian, taller, sharper, her presence radiating dominance. Did you not understand? Sincere likes me? Why on earth would you think he likes you? I stepped forward, taking Victoria's arm. A touch of exasperation in my eyes, like one would give a petulant child. I've already told you the person I like is Victoria. My eyes. She is better than you in every single way. Please, stop flattering yourself. She didn't believe me. Her eyes shimmered with a complicated mix of emotions as she stared at me, reaching out to take my hand. Sincere. I regret it. We're willing. I'll go to grandfather right now and tell him you're the one I want to marry. Her Caleb's face went deathly pale. At her words, he reached out to tug at her dress, but she shook him off violently. I dodged her touch, my gaze now completely void of emotion. Not willing. Gasps rippled through the guests. Is Miss Sinclair trying to marry Sincere Sterling again? Well, they were childhood sweethearts. Maybe there are still feelings there. Exactly. The moment she heard he was marrying someone else, she couldn't stand it. Caleb clenched his fists, the color draining from his face, his eyes reddening as he pitifully pulled at Vivian. Vivian, didn't you say you would? Marry me? Didn't you say you only loved me? Only then did Vivian seem to remember her current fiancé standing beside her. She looked at him, conflicted, but before she could speak, an enraged Arthur Sinclair strode forward and kicked her hard. What do you think you're doing? Is marriage a game to you? What do you take these two young men for? You think? You can swap and choose as if you're picking fruit at the market. Who on earth raised you to be like this? You are an absolute disgrace to the Sinclair name. Vivian's eyes welled up as she turned pleadingly to her parents. Dad, Mom, please, talk to grandfather.
Oh.
Didn't you want Sincere to marry me too? He only agreed to marry that bastard out of spite. Once he cools down, he'll regret it. Arthur's face darkened. He had just endorsed Victoria, and now Vivian was making a spectacle, turning the entire family into a laughingstock. Whispers rippled through the guests. What kind of drama is the Sinclair family putting on? Who's engaged to whom now? Are they going to switch again in a few days? Sensing his father's fury, Robert Sinclair smacked Vivian on the back of her head. If you say one more ridiculous thing, I'll break your legs. Apologize to your cousin, and too sincere now. Even Vivian, foolish as she was, could feel the burning stares of the crowd. Under the combined glares of her father and grandfather, she reluctantly muttered an apology. I drank too much and was talking nonsense, but Sincere, please don't. Take it to heart. I accepted her apology with a smile, though my gaze slid past her to Caleb, who was grinding his teeth behind her. You should probably go comfort your fiancée. After that scene, I'm sure he's not feeling too great. At my words, all eyes turned to Caleb. Though he usually enjoyed attention, this was not the kind he wanted. He shot me a vicious glare, then looked mournfully at Vivian before stomping his foot and storming out. After the birthday party, Vivian called me several times. I didn't answer. The date for my engagement to Victoria was set for the following Thursday. The timeline was tight, but for the Sterling family, it was nothing. My mother also planned to announce me as the Sterling heir that day. The Sinclair engagement, Vivian was naturally required to attend. I was in the dressing room, arranging my suit, when a staff member hurried in, saying Victoria needed to see me urgently. I followed the directions, but as soon as I stepped inside the indicated room, the door slammed shut behind me and locked. A hand clamped a handkerchief over my mouth and nose. The drug took hold quickly. My body turned weak, my limbs heavy. When I was thrown onto a bed, I saw my captor, Vivian. Her fingertips traced my cheek with a disturbing tenderness, her eyes glittering with obsession and madness.
Ow.
When Victoria sees what we've done, she'll have no choice but to call off the wedding. You'll have to marry me. I was furious. You insane? Pulling a stunt like this will disgrace both our families? She bit her lip, her fingers slipping to my shirt buttons. Why were you so quick to marry someone else? You can only marry me. Her shamelessness made me laugh in disgust. I tried to slap her, but my hand barely brushed her cheek. The one who chose someone else at the engagement party? And now you're blaming me? She leaned closer, voice trembling with twisted sincerity. I regret it. I realize now. The person I've always loved is you. Caleb was just a mistake. Just as my belt was being undone, the door burst open. Victoria strode in, seized Vivian by the hair, and threw her hard to the floor. Our eyes met briefly then. She splashed cold water on my face and helped me to another room. I had no strength to attend the ceremony, so I called over my mother's assistant and whispered instructions. Before long, the hallway erupted in chaos, a male cries, male shouts, and a storm of curses. Victoria returned, leaning against the doorframe, studying me. You had someone drug her. I managed a faint smile. She's returning the favor. She helped me out. In the hallway, Vivian was thrashing and sobbing, while Caleb, red-faced and yanking at his tie, tried to calm her. A scantily clad man stood nearby, watching with cold detachment. Soon, Robert and Beatrice Sinclair arrived. It was obvious to everyone what had just happened. From across the hall, Vivian pointed at us, screaming it was them. They set me up. I was supposed to be with, the words almost slipped out. But she stopped herself, remembering that she had been the one to strike first. If this got out, Arthur would never forgive her. How could you do this to me? Caleb wailed, turning the spotlight onto himself. You said you only loved me, and now you're cheating on me like this? His cries drew the attention of the guests who had come for the engagement party. Vivian's reputation had already been shredded by recent events, but this scandal would be the talk of the town for months. Feeling the weight of every stare, Vivian's dizziness twisted into fury. She turned on Caleb, slapping him hard across the face. What are you crying about? Haven't you embarrassed us enough? The spectacle was so captivating that no one noticed the engagement ceremony had been delayed by 20 minutes. Then Victoria and I appeared hand in hand, ignoring Vivian's murderous glare as we stepped onto the stage, smiling sweetly. My mother emerged from backstage with the Sterling family's butler and several senior assistants. The guests' eyes widened in disbelief. They didn't know my mother, but they certainly recognized the Sterling aides. Several people began. Moving toward her, she took the microphone and, with calm authority, announced my identity as the heir to the Sterling family. Down below, Vivian and Caleb stood frozen, their mouths agape, their eyes vacant. Beside them, Robert and Beatrice Sinclair's faces flushed red, then drained white, gasping for breath like fish out of water. They had never imagined I was the Sterling heir. Only then did they understand what Arthur Sinclair meant when he had said that only the one who married me could inherit the Sinclair family. From that day, Caleb and Vivian became social pariahs. The very people who once fawned over them now avoided them like the plague. Vivian had never experienced such a fall from grace. She tried to outshine Victoria through her career, but her skills couldn't compare. She could handle simple deals, but when she pushed into industries she didn't understand, she was played for a fool and lost huge sums of money. Instead of reflecting on her failures, she convinced herself Victoria had orchestrated her downfall and began recklessly targeting her. After a string of humiliations, Arthur Sinclair's patience snapped. He summoned her home, scolded her harshly, and stripped her of all real authority, leaving her as a powerless shareholder with nothing to do. Meanwhile, Victoria and I were an unshakable team. She expanded our market overseas. I solidified her position at home. She was formidable in business. Within 6 months, she had surpassed the company's annual targets. Even Arthur Sinclair began entrusting her with critical projects and appointed her to a senior head office role for further grooming. Everyone knew, barring the unexpected Victoria Sinclair, would be the next head of the Sinclair family. While Victoria's star ascended, Vivian's life turned hollow. With no responsibilities, she drowned herself in pleasure, surrounding herself with a string of male models. Caleb, infuriated by her affairs, began arguing with her constantly, shedding his once gentle facade. The breaking point came when he caught her in bed with another man. Caleb lost control, storming in with shouts and blows. In the chaos, he shoved her, sending her tumbling down the stairs. She survived, but she miscarried the child she carried. For a time, there was silence between them, till one of Vivian's lovers appeared brazenly at their door. Arthur Sinclair heard of it, and in his fury he broke 3 canes on her before sending her to the hospital for a month. Despite her failures, Robert Sinclair still had influence. I knew getting Victoria to inherit the fortune wouldn't be simple, but Robert's biggest weakness was his daughter a liability that made my work easier. Her scandals had been so endless that, once she left the hospital, Robert forced her to marry Caleb. He was bidding on a major project and needed the wedding to salvage his remaining dignity. For once, Vivian seemed to grasp the weight of the situation and submitted, going through with the ceremony without protest. But as Victoria's fame grew, the comparisons were inevitable. The former golden girl of the Sinclair family became a cautionary tale. To praise Victoria, people tore Vivian down, every word reaching her ears. I heard she smashed countless things at home before vowing, through gritted teeth, to make Victoria pay. The project Victoria was leading came under investigation. Accusations of cutting corners, using substandard materials, even leaking company assets. Just as Vivian thought she could seize the moment, the authorities took away the few loyal people still working for her. She had now lost all remaining influence in the company. When she returned home dejected, she heard Caleb chattering away, trying to take credit. "Honey, did something happen with Victoria's project?" Vivian looked at him strangely. "How did you know?" Caleb puffed out his chest proudly. "I had someone leak her documents, and that construction project of hers. I had someone switch out the materials. And also, before he could finish, a wave of fury and nausea washed over Vivian. She nearly coughed up blood. She knew very well that if this ever came to light, it wouldn't just be Victoria who suffered. The entire Sinclair family would be dragged down. And when Arthur Sinclair learned Caleb was behind it, he would never let her off the hook. Her gaze turned vicious. Without a word, she dragged Caleb into the car and sped to the old Sinclair estate. Vivian knelt before Arthur Sinclair, tearfully confessing Caleb's foolish actions. Only then did Caleb realize the magnitude of what he had done. He clung to her leg, sobbing. "I was just trying to help you. I saw how unhappy you were, so I wanted to do something. Never thought it would turn out like this. The two of them gave Arthur a splitting headache. He slammed his hand on the table. Enough, the priority now is fixing this mess. He looked at Vivian with deep disappointment. Vivian, you've let me down more than I can say. Victoria and I were summoned to the study as well. Arthur explained the situation. My father Julian was so angry he nearly fainted. He pointed a trembling finger at Caleb. How could you do something so foolish? Why must you always compete with your brother? Can't you just live your life in peace? Caleb's eyes were already swollen from crying, but he still shouted back, We're both your sons. Why does he get the best of everything? You even let him run the family business, while I get nothing. My father's voice rose, livid. Didn't I always get you a copy of everything I bought for Sincere? Some of those things were gifts from Sincere's mother. You can't expect her to get you one too. And do you forget? You almost failed high school. I paid a fortune to send you abroad just to get a fancy degree. If I let you manage the company, it would be bankrupt in a month. You tell me why I don't give you the business? Caleb faltered, but then shouted again through fresh tears. Then why did you give me only 5% of the shares, while Sincere got 35%? Is this how you honor my mother's memory? She died in childbirth for you, and this is how you treat me? My father's expression hardened, his voice low but heavy. Of Sincere's shares, only 5% came from me. The largest shareholder is his mother. I only own 12% myself. I kept 2%, and the rest was split evenly between you and Sincere. I have to tell you the truth. You are not my biological son. You were a child I found and adopted. If you don't believe me, we can check the records. I have done more than enough for you. I never thought you would turn out like this. Caleb was stunned into silence, unable to process the truth. Vivian, who had hoped to use the Donovan family to claw her way back into power, was now faced with this devastating new reality. In the heavy silence that followed, it was Victoria who first proposed a solution. Acting with incredible speed, she resolved everything before the scandal could explode. By the time the story hit the news, the company had already issued a statement. The internal investigation was complete, and the responsible parties had been handed over to the authorities. Once the dust settled, Arthur Sinclair held a press conference and officially confirmed Victoria as the heir to the Sinclair family. Vivian's branch was completely marginalized. Though they still held shares, their influence was a shadow of its former self. They blamed everything on Caleb, and their home became a battlefield of endless, bitter arguments. My wedding to Victoria was a grand affair unprecedented. We stood before the crowd, smiled at each other, and mouthed the same words, "A pleasure doing business with you,"